Paul Vos is Expertise Leader, Nutrition Quality and Health at Wageningen Food and Biobased Research, and he's the coordinator of the EU Giantleaps project.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. It's great to continue on the back of this discussion that we've just had, because within Giantleaps, we try to give answers to many of these complex questions. So, let me present you our project. The Giantleaps project is a research and innovation action that has just started last year. So we're still in the early phase. It's a bit a long title, but at least we try to have an integrated view on all the elements that play into alternative proteins on both the sustainability side as well as on the health side. And we focus solely on human food applications. So that is also, of course, feed is not part of our scope. And it's great that we can build on the original Horizon for Proteins project. So in a sense, we stand on the shoulders of giants as well as microalgae. And I guess the partners also of the original Horizon for Proteins project are involved in our project as well. So we try to build on information that is their knowledge that has been generated in our project. You can see the partners here. We have 34 partners. It's quite a large project scattered all around Europe. It's also a Canadian partner in there. So that is what we do the project with. I guess with what is clear to all of you and all of us, also just relating to the discussion we've just had, that the protein transition or sustainable food system transition is a very complex issue. And we try to address all the different elements that play into that. And Giantleaps tries to fill knowledge gaps in relation to data that is missing and that is important. We try to develop or improve methodologies to speed up processes, and we work on innovations to make available to make alternative proteins available in food products that can be eaten at large scale. So in the end, we want to then make an integrated assessment of the potential of alternative proteins. And the ambition is, and this links a bit to the question earlier, to achieve already by 2030, we have defined to be at a mix of 50% of alternative protein intake versus more traditional animal intake. That may be very ambitious, but we at least hope to play into the transition from where we are now, around 60 to 70% animal protein intake and 30% other intake, to shifting that around on the long term. So, as I mentioned, we try to have a very integrated approach. This is a schematic overview of the setup of our project. We focus a lot on stakeholder involvement and getting all the relevant perspectives, also getting engagement and input from all the relevant players throughout the different sectors that I mentioned here. And then in the middle of the slide, you can see the different expertise areas that we address. So we try to fill environmental gaps, improving sustainability assessment. We focus on health gaps and focus on digestibility, the availability of co-nutrients and benefits that alternative protein sources can bring. The toxicology and potential allergenicity is very important, so the safety aspects are very important. And within these areas, we focus mostly on method development and filling knowledge gaps. But then also, as was discussed, consumers need to want to eat products with alternative proteins. So consumer acceptance is also one of the necessary conditions to make the transition successful. So that's an important focus of our project. And then more the food technology side of things, so getting alternative proteins into products that can be produced and consumed at scale. And across these different expertise areas, we want to gather data that is generated within the project, as well as external data, into a data platform that can be used within the project, but also offer that information to external parties. And then with all that data, the most integrated output that we hope to achieve with the project is to define what future diets could look like in Europe. So what role can alternative proteins play into that? What sources can be used in what type of food products? And then to optimize that for sustainability or environmental impact and health impact. So it has both these elements, the sustainability focus and the health focus. And as this session is about policy, the most important goal of this project is actually to inform policymakers and then also other stakeholders. So also that is a very important focus of Giantleaps. We focus on many different alternative protein sources and categories. I won't go into the details, but we try to also have impact on different timescales. So we try to collect data on alternative protein sources where there's already a lot of data and not so many data gaps or knowledge gaps, because there you can have the fastest impact. On the midterm, we focus on 9 protein sources that are mentioned in the next slide, where we aim to do, for instance, innovation on the food technology, so where we can have impact on the midterm. And on the long term, we want to focus more on methodology development and speeding up the process of getting alternative proteins ready for applications in human food, both from safety and regulatory side, as well as from the, I guess, other relevant aspects. All with the idea that we need to have diet impact to have environmental and health impact. So we really focus on things that can have large-scale impact in European diets. These are the protein sources that we focus on in this midterm view. So 9 protein sources, 5 of them plant-based: faba bean, lentil, oat, quinoa, and rapeseed. We focus on microalgae, chlorella specifically. We focus on single-cell bacterial proteins, crickets as an exemplar of the insect category, and also uncultured beef for cultured meat. For the last category, still supply of materials very limited, so what we can do experimentally there will also be a bit limited. Just very briefly, this is our work package structure. So you can see the work package 1 on the left-hand side. This is the part where the consumer research is done, also where the engagement with stakeholders happens. And there's lots of links to the more experimental work packages. So as you can see, work package 2 on the food processing and food technology, work package 3 on the safety elements, risk assessments, digestibility and health in work package 4, and sustainability in work package 5. These experimental data feed into our data platform, as I mentioned, also where we will also try to collect existing data in the public domain. And then in work package 7, these future scenarios and modeling approaches will be taken to see what future dietary scenarios could work in Europe, and where this will not be just one, I'd say, scenario for all of Europe, but it will be split into 4 regions. So basically the northeast, southwest regions will be defined to try to have at least some, I'd say, specification or that, well, there's not one size fits all approach across all of Europe. And then, of course, the more organizational and communication focused work packages. As I mentioned, we are just starting out, but a lot of work has been done in the first year. A pilot on consumer insight has been done in Switzerland, and the findings of this will be used to do much more in the 4 countries around Europe to be, I'd say, more indicative for the 4 regions in Europe. A lot of work has been done on collecting and characterizing alternative protein ingredients to also do the food processing with. A analysis of current dietary intake in Europe has been done. And then this information will be used for the modeling approaches. We will do a human study. I didn't mention it before, but in our work package 4, we will develop in vitro methods for digestibility analysis and to improve current methodologies, but also do a human study to validate that and to bring further detail on 2 selected ingredients. And actually, microalgae is one of the protein categories that is selected for that. Importantly, on the safety side, as an intermediate deliverable, we will develop risk assessment scenarios for 5 selected protein categories, because we think that the relevant risk assessment and information that is needed differs per protein category, and that it's very important to create more clarity and guidance on that. And then, as I mentioned, policy advice is a very important output for our project. So we will develop at least 9 policy briefs in the areas that are mentioned on the slide. And therefore, it's also very interesting to have the discussion and to build on what is already developed here in the current Horizon for Proteins projects. And then lastly, I want to mention that we have a stakeholder board, so with lots of stakeholders outside our consortium. So far, we have 40 organizations in there, and we're also looking to extend it. So if you're in the room and you're of interest to connect to our project, or if you know partners that are relevant in this field, either in industry or in the policy area or other relevant areas, we are very much looking to connect. For instance, also to consumer organizations that we want to address but have not yet linked with. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention.
Are there any questions? The online questions? No?
There's a question over here.
Yes.
Paul, the project is very much targeting policy and changing the diet of people in Europe. Is there like also a democratic approach to it, meaning there will be decision to be taken for the people? So have you considered the role of citizen in this policy making to make sure that the change that will be done in the diet is chosen, accepted, disseminated, and there will not be a reaction of saying no, we don't want this, we have not been associated with the change?
Yes, that's a very relevant and good question. The approach that we have taken in the project is to do quantitative consumer research rather than doing specific co-creation with consumers. Since we work across such a diverse range of proteins, we thought that this was the best basis to build our project on from the, I'd say, the consumer side. But the acceptance and the cultural, relevance of alternative proteins and products in which alternative proteins can be incorporated is very much within scope of our consumer research work in our work package 1. So that is very much in focus of our the tasks and work that is done in the project, and of course. No one is forced into any future diet, but what we want to do is to uncover what could be realistic scenarios where actually alternative protein use is, or applications of alternative proteins hopefully will be accepted by consumers as good as we can predict, of course, in advance, because that is always, there will be elements that you cannot predict, but we want to be as close as possible to insights that we can get from consumers to make recommendations on that basis, rather than on a basis of, well, the research only.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. In the risk assessment and scenarios that you will have in the project, are you going to explore as well new approach methodologies, alternatives to animal testing and things like this?
Yes, that is also part of our work package too. For time reasons, I didn't want to go into all the details of the work packages, but we are looking both at in silico predictions as well as in vitro assays to try to how to say, assess as early on in an optimal way whether there is a risk of allergenicity and whether that is in the cross-reactivity or more in de novo sensitization. So those are two elements that are being addressed. And in addition, what we're also doing is to try to have more of a post-market surveillance mechanism set up so that we can improve the very early allergenicity risk indications as well as after I'd say products are introduced to the market, we can see more what happens in the market because such a mechanism does not yet exist like it does for the pharma industry.